Well, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Fire and Training. I'm your host, Douglas Klein, and tonight we're going to talk training and fire. But this great show tonight is going to push it to the lowest level. We're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk about accountability. And I'm so grateful to have my good friend, Dave McGlynn, on with me. Dave is the fire chief at Letterkenny Army Depot. He's the owner of Passion in Leading. Great fitting topic for tonight, obviously. But Dave, it's great to have you on the show. It's always fun when we get together. We've talked about doing this for, I don't know, a year or so now.
Yeah, I was going to say probably a year.
Yeah, we decided that when we were at Missouri together that we were going to do this, and we're up to it now, and it's going to be the August 1st show, and it's going to be great. You know, it just I can't say enough about what we talk about and how we get down into the concepts of leadership. And the topic tonight, I picked it because it's stuff that we're working on here where I'm at in Horry County, and it's stuff that's being worked on across the United States. I know you've talked about it in several of your programs. We've had conversations about leadership, but leadership being at the lowest level and the impact that can have. So let's kick it off. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's interesting. So, the lowest level, I love saying that because we're not talking about it being like that in a condescending way. It literally starts there and it continues there. Like, that company officer, I say to people, and even leading into going to become a company officer, those are important roles. Now in the chief's position, I'll get my guys and I love them, but they pass their captain and their assistant chief to come down to my office and talk to me about something. And when I worked at West Point, I used to hate that the chiefs were secluded or isolated from the fire departments because we were in a headquarters building, and then there was multiple stations. Where I'm at now, I'm in the building with the guys, so they have access to me. And I always say to them, this is your department, so figure it out. And I don't mean that I can't make the decision. It's, that leadership piece, it's done on the floor. It's done with your young guy who's aspiring to lead others. It's done with your senior guy. And it's certainly done with the company officer. They have that great impact, that capability of saying something like, I could say the same thing I said 10 years ago when I was a company officer, but now that I have 5 bugles, it's like the principal is yelling at you instead of the kid that sits next to you saying, hey, sit still in your chair. So it resonates different, and it's very important for the success of your organization that you have that initial buy-in and almost innovation from that level, from that lower level leadership, from that, mid-level manager type leader. That's just my thought.
Well, I can tell you, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And the biggest thing of it is it's trying to get people to understand that, in reality, part of what you're doing, and I do a program called Developing Your Leadership Resume that will outlast you. And one of the first things I tell folks, it has absolutely nothing to do with rank. It has everything to do with the characteristics and the traits and your passion. And,
right.
And I tell them right off the bat, almost anything can't stop passion if you're very passionate about it. But, one of the big things that when I look at this and I begin thinking about it and talking to people is if you're the new guy and your first, couple of weeks on the floor or whatever, there are people taking care of you. And there's nothing like the senior man. We'll talk more about the senior man or the senior firefighter with that. But, people show you things and they're learning. So you're 6 months in, all of a sudden there's another new person that comes on the floor where your job is to lead them. Your job is to train them. Your job is to help them. It's to share everything that you know and that you've learned so far. And again, gain from them as well. And I think we forget that. We forget a lot about it.
I don't disagree at all. I'll tell you something that, as you're saying it, I don't even want to sound hypocritical because as I've advanced, my focus has gone different different taskers and responsibilities and do outs that, even when you become fire chief, you still have a boss, people don't realize that, so I actually just what you just said just opened my eyes, because like one of the things that we were working toward when I was running training before was we were trying to do some kind of like task book for up and coming officers. We were trying to create this environment where we would inspire a lot of the guys that were on the floor, these younger guys, to have something to look toward, but also give that like nudge toward the other guys to become those unofficial leaders. So even if, we weren't dangling a carrot like, hey, you might put on bugles, it was more or less just like you just said, firefighters, unfortunately, were great when it comes to impulse decision making, because we love doing the job and being able to react, right? But during the monotony piece in the firehouse, we always want to create 7 layers of padding. We don't want to be the one to make the decision because it could piss off our comrades or whatever, and then you can't sit at the table. And it's like, it doesn't have to be a decision that's going to make people upset. It's to make all of us better. So like, if you see a new guy that's in your station, assigned to your company, and he's sitting in the recliner in the afternoon, and he's not either down in the gym working out or whatever, it's not just the captain's job to go and get him to do something. You need to go and get him and be like, hey man, let me show you some of the area. Let me show you, the way we pack our hose. It's a little different than what you might be used to, or what we carry in some of these compartments. Or, hey, how comfortable are you with throwing ladders? Let's pull some ladders off real quick and throw them against the firehouse. Shit like that goes a long way. Like you said, training and that leadership piece. I never was of the mindset that it's not my job. I still say to my guys, like, I use the milk about to spill off the table as an analogy, right? So I have my water here. So if I have this glass of water and it's on the edge of the table right here, if I walk by this thing and I go, well, that's going to fall, but it ain't my problem. Well, now I'm the problem. But if I push this back in the center of the table, I now prevented catastrophe. That's your job in your firehouse. Whether you have bugles or not, you see something, you should do something, okay? If you see that you can have the opportunity to make somebody learn something or do better at it, you are that unofficial leader. You should, you wear your department logo on your chest. This is a culture that we have to create, because we unfortunately lose people. I'm not even ashamed to admit it. We've hired a bunch of guys over the past few years. We hired a guy, he's a nice kid, same scenario, sitting around. Nobody did anything to work with him, inspire him, make him feel like, hey, this is what we do here at Letterkenny. And the kid popped out and transferred back to where he used to work. And I really took that personal. And guys were like, who cares? He couldn't hack it. But we failed. This kid should have come here and been excited to be part of what we're doing. And that starts with my guys on the floor need to understand that whether you got rank or not, you serve in a capacity periodically of being an unofficial leader. So these people need to understand how to set that culture and then lead that culture, whether they're a leader or not.
I agree. You said something that I'm going to really take off and run with here. Them toilet plungers that sit up on shoulders, I call them toilet plungers.
Yeah.
They're trumpets. They're speaking trumpets. But let's be real. Just because you got a bunch of those things don't make you a leader.
Right.
It doesn't make you a good officer just because you got to that point. And I hate to say that, but it's true. It's relevant. And, here's the thing that sticks out to me. And I want to make sure that I talk about this, because a real leader is a real giver. And in one of my slides, I've got me and Chris Nam standing with Kevin Che. Now, you stop and think about it. I posted his picture, that iconic picture of him hanging off the side of the building doing the rescue, and some of my famous things that I like to kind of put out there. But you think about what that guy gave as a leader. He didn't have rank. But what did he do? I mean, who did he impact? How many people did he impact? How many people does he still impact today out of just that one photo?
Yeah, and he's super modest about it too. Like, he doesn't like that he impacted that many people. But you're right.
No. But it impacts me. It drives me to be like this guy. And now he's out in Montana on a big ranch having a great time and
shooting caribou and stuff. Living the best life.
Hang out with him, it was cool. I was like, hey, I'm out here with Kevin Shea again, and we're in Montana. But what people fail to realize is the impact that you have on people, or the failure to have an impact on people. And one of the
missed opportunity of that impact.
Yeah, we're doing a program within our department called the Submarine Way. And, it's off of the book. It's kind of pushed to where everything kind of gets pushed down. And everybody at first was like, oh, this is stupid. This is, nonsense. And now that we've pushed it down and we've got, the battalion chiefs to buy in, we've got the captains to buy in, we're working with the lieutenants, on this now, we're beginning to see a change in dynamics. We're beginning to see a change in the culture. And that's something that we wanted to see. And of course, as we continue to grow and grow and grow like we're growing, it's imperative that we have that strong leadership, out there in the streets. And, I see it every day. I listen to the radio today. I'm the on-call chief. Something would go wrong, or they need somebody, or we'd have some greater alarm. I'm available to respond. And I'm listening to a call go out, and it was originally dispatched as an odor, smoke, electrical smell. Quickly got upgraded to a working fire because it had a garage fire, had extension into the attic area, extension into the house. And just listening to our people and how they were taking care of business, and listening to those officers taking care of business on a scene was phenomenal. I mean, quick knockdown, everything looked good. The battalion chief was doing her job. The officers were doing their job. The radio traffic was good. But we do that well. What happens when we have these fires in the firehouse that we're not addressing, we're not taking care of? Everybody thinks that, we need officer development programs and getting you ready to be an officer. We need to talk about tactics.
Yeah,
tactics, we're not bad at tactics. We're actually pretty daggone good at tactics.
Right.
We work on that stuff every single day, but it's when you got to sit down and have a tough conversation with somebody that's really unique, or when they got to sit down and tell somebody you're not performing at the level that we want you to perform at, and here's the issue: how are you going to fix this? How can I help you fix this? And again, it's putting it back on them, because if we put ownership at the lowest level, everything comes back to you to have to lead. And I tell folks, to be a great leader, you have to be a leader of one, and that's you. If you can't lead yourself, or you can't lead one, you're never going to lead any.
Yeah.
Because if you can't lead yourself, you can't do things right, you're not going to have an impact on these other people. But again, think about it. And you know this as well as I do. If we've got a good leader, it's like giving somebody a big gulp of that salt water that I was out there on the beach today with. Giving that drink of salt water, the more they get, the thirstier they get for this stuff. They want something to help get it. They get thirsty.
Right.
Well, what would happen if we had an organization that was thirsty across the board for leadership?
Well, we wouldn't be able to talk about this stuff. That's what would happen.
Yeah, we'd be out of a job.
You know what I mean? I say that, because I'm young in this, I followed all you guys and I'm just honored to be there. But isn't that like, it's great. So hear me out on this. So just to answer that, because you covered a lot of great points. So just the most recent thing, I'll say this in my experience now, I'm in my mid 40s and I'm doing this thing that we get to do, and it's great. And I one time I sat back and I said, yeah, it's great that like I get to be with the guys that I followed and was a hero, and one day I'll be able to do the same thing for those next guys coming up that are under me right now or younger than me. But that's the saddest thing is we can't stop talking about this stuff, but it's just so prevalent in every fire station across America, across the fire service, even in businesses. Leadership is at a fail. And it's not just the people that run the organization, though everyone is quick to point the finger. Sometimes it's the man in the mirror. Sometimes it's the guy sitting next to you. Sometimes it's the salty fireman who's the best fireman in the world, absolutely is a cancer inside of your station. And like you said, some people are very fortunate that they're just a fire factory. They're burning everything down. They're going on all these jobs and calls, and that's awesome. I mean, I like fighting fire. I like going to fires too, but most of I would say 80% of American fire service is, that's 20% of their job is going and doing tactics. Now I love tactics too, and it's sexy, but we only want to talk about tactics. And I think that's the key right there. So, jokingly, I said we wouldn't be able to talk about this, right? Is because those of us that have this opportunity to have this stage, we always want to sprinkle tactics in, one, because it's cool and we love it, right? Because we're kids, we even though we grow up, we're kids, we're firemen, and we stay a child forever because of the tactic side of it, because it's so cool and sexy, but that's the fail, is that we're not teaching how to put out the fires in the firehouse, like you said. My buddy Jess Quinalty wrote a book about this called Rescue Me, and it's really good. And there's some dudes out there that are talking about this, but it's not sexy enough. What resonates is tactics, and I got it. I love tactics, but like, if we don't know how to build our people, you're only going to be good 100. You're going to be 100% good at something only 20% of the time. And at the end of the day, that means you're only good 20% of the time, because in the firehouse, if you don't operate with the same desire and passion and wherewithal that you do going to a job, and you can't conduct yourself to want to grow people and build your organization and represent what your organization means when they're hitting the queue and hitting the air horn and pulling out of the station, then you're only good 20% of the time. And I know that that's going to sting some people who are going to be listening to this, but that's just become my assessment. I'm like, why are we still having a leadership problem? And the reason why is because we only want people to learn about how to talk on the radio, like you said, and, pull the line right. Yeah, that's important. But if I got guys that don't know how to conduct themselves in a firehouse, or they're just punching their time card coming into firehouse, I mean, yeah, it sucks if you screw up on a call. I'm going to get in your ass about it. But I'm more concerned that 80% of the time you're a complete jerk off. That's a problem.
I would agree. And that's 90% of the problems that we run into with officers, especially new officers. And, I can remember back, you can probably remember this too. We learned how not to do some things with the people we work for. We figured it out very quickly. These guys don't know what they're doing. They're idiots. And unfortunately, they may say that about us too. You never know. But I look back, and I had some folks that were just lost as Hogan's goat, and Hogan didn't even know he had a goat farm. That's how bad it was. One of the things that Chief Brunacini shared with me, and of course, Chief Brunacini was a personal friend and a mentor, and I mean, that goes back to FDIC in 1994 in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's a whole nother story that we can talk about. But
awesome,
I remember the cool things about Chief Brunacini, and one of them was about adopting and embracing the organization's values. We all have values, but it's something that's just written on a piece of paper. It's slung up on a board someplace, but we don't live them. And
some people aren't even aware of them. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah,
that's another.
You're right.
Let's say we have the core values, but you ask, do you stop a dude that's in the station that's been there for 10 years? I bet he don't know. Isn't that horrible? That's a failure on us, though. That's an official leadership problem.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. So all our recruits, when they go through, they do the mission, vision, and values every day.
I love it.
They have to say it. And in any given time towards the end of their recruit academy, they better be able to recite that. Boom, Johnny on the spot when we ask you. And it's about honor and integrity, respect, responsibility, accountability, and professionalism. I mean,
love it.
Those are the values that we've got to do. So when we look at that, one of the biggest things is I take responsibility. That is one that sticks out to me probably farther than anything else, is that we're responsible for each other. And we don't take that responsibility to the level that we need to. And that begins caring for the interests of others. And I use this statement, nobody cares what you know until they know how much you care. You got to show them that. I mean, I can be the smartest guy in the world, and if I don't care about people, they don't care what I know.
Care, right.
Good leaders. And I go back to this beginning stage of these folks, and this is kind of where that senior person in the house, the senior firefighter, is so critical and so important. And I think about some of these guys that have been around the senior firefighters for 20, 25 years, never promoted up to driver, never wanted to be an officer, but they were great at the senior person in that company. And they taught so much to these folks. They showed people stuff. It was the person you got, in their pocket and you went with. They took you under the wing. And I had one of those guys when I first was coming around the firehouse. Now, I'm the kid that they had to do something with at like the age of 14 because I would not leave. I mean, I was that kid. I was that aggravated, snotty-nosed kid that would not leave. And I'll never forget this guy dropping the keys out of the second-story window so I could let myself in. He got to where he didn't even come downstairs anymore. Hey, here's the keys, kid. Gary Green. And I'll never forget when they brought me on, it was January 29th, 1979. And I'm a snotty-nosed kid. They voted me in, and, the beginning of the training night, and then they went outside and they were going to show me some things. So I got on 3/4 boots, a long rubber coat with a wool lining, corduroy collar, orange fireball gloves, this helmet, plastic helmet with a floppy shield, and they gave me a sponge. You know what the sponge was for? Was filter breathe.
I was going to say for breathing.
CBA out, we got to fill them things up. They took me out, and I'll never forget, Jody Clowers was the fire chief. I don't look down at many people, but I can look down at Jody. And he's chewing on a cigar, and he looked at me and said, boy, if you fog that nozzle out and put your face down on it, you can breathe. And I'm like, holy cow, these are like echoing words of wisdom. So
yeah.
I had an Akron Selectaflow, 95 GPMs a minute. They taught me left for life, right for reach. I took that thing back, popped the bell on that, dropped my face down. That big floppy shield dropped over in that shield, down into that toe stream. I got a nose enema like a trout. I mean, after all this time that Jerry Green had worked with me, dropping the keys out, this snotty-nosed kid looks like a freaking idiot. Well, Jerry comes over and says, hey, if you tighten these little things down on the side, that won't happen. So he tightened it, put it back, said, okay, do it again. I dropped it down, and they were right, man. There's an airflow coming out of that nozzle. It was like the greatest thing since peanut butter and jelly. Now, I would fire you if you did that stuff today. You didn't wear an SCBA, but I just think about that. That resonates with me. That's probably a driving factor in how I go about doing things with people, and because it's caring for their interests. He had a true, genuine care for my interests and to make me better. He loved what he did. He loved the fire service. Great guy. I mean, just phenomenal guy. If I had one person I went back to that had the profound impact, that one key time period, January 29th, 1979, Jerry Green wins the prize. And it was cold in West Virginia. I grew up in West Virginia. It was cold.
Yeah.
So needless to say, I was wet and had a nose enema and half drowned and and all that. But
yeah, but it had such an impact. You remember every detail of that and the date. And I got to say, that I love the story. It's an awesome story. Now, you shared that with me one time when we were hanging out and we were possibly getting into bourbon or whiskey. I don't remember which, but it was brown. I remember that. But anyway.
Probably bourbon.
Right. It was a lot funnier that night. I remember that, but it's still a funny story. No, in all seriousness, that right there is like, that's how important those leadership moments are. Like, every one of us, if you talk to people that are out there doing this for the right reason. And what I mean when I say that is like this opportunity we have where we get to do these podcasts, we write, we teach, all that stuff, right? Because there's so many people that want to do it. And it's tough. It's a tough business to get into. But those of us that you and I get to, know and be friends with, and you've, rubbed elbows with the greats. I mean, you just named Bruno, every one of us has those stories that had such an impact on us. Right. And it's like, I'm not trying to be pessimistic, so hear me out. I don't know if we have those anymore. And I think what we need to do, those of us that still value that importance, that are still have some level of impact, like that are either still on the job or still very active in teaching and spreading message, is we need to let folks know, like, those stories. And we need to let them know why it's so important, and, let them see that glow that you just had in your eyes. You know what I mean? It brought you back to being a kid, that you just telling the story, because we got people, I feel like, again, I'm sounding pessimistic, but it's just the truth. So I was very fortunate. I was right at the cusp of the Gen Xers going into the millennials. And I'm not picking on a generational thing, because when I got into fire service, everybody was, these young guys, But it is a little different now, because the people that raised us in the fire service were still baby boomers. They were just finishing up. They were brand new Gen Xers, and they'd been doing the job 10, 20 years, for me. And now it seems that it's more likes and shares and buzz rather than that stuff. Those like inspirational moments that you just can't let go until you're dead. Like, you can't explain it to somebody that doesn't do what we do. Why do you love being a firefighter so much? Let me tell you this story about this. And then people are like, huh? Well, that just sounds like a goofy, because you don't understand. You can't connect, but we speak each other's language. And I feel like we still have a good chance at reviving what's almost lost in our younger generation coming up is stuff like that. That shit is really important, because even those little things, those are the that big deal, and that low level leadership thing is that one moment where it just snaps, it just connects, makes or breaks the difference in having a long-term 20, 25-year guy to a guy that's punching his ticket, or transferring out. And I think that the more we share stories like that, the more we show that desire, that passion, that kid in us. I don't know, maybe I'm being a moron, but I just feel like the less we worry about what other people think about when we tell those stories, and the more that we just keep telling those stories, the more people are going to normalize that and understand that that's a part of our culture. And they need to have them stories too. And they need to then want to be that person. I want to be that guy that turned it all around for me when I was a kid. I want to be able to do that for somebody because it felt so great, and not be, worried about, well, that's not my job. Well, yes, it is. Whether you got, a rank or not, it is absolutely your job, because you're part of this. And at the end of the day, it's like I say to people, I'm from a family of 4. It's not that big of a family, but it's big enough where, I got siblings that make mistakes, and I too. And the fire department is your father's last name. So like when we were growing up, my father and my mother, they very much instilled in us that like our name mattered. And even if it didn't to the outside world, in my house, it mattered. So when you would do something off color, we would not allow anybody from the outside to talk bad about you, but we would handle that shit in-house because you're making our father's name look bad. So the same thing goes with the fire department. Like, you want to be part of this, you're wearing our last name. You absolutely have an opportunity to make this person make our last name look good. It is your problem. I hate when I hear, oh, that's not my job. Well, it is your job. You're wearing our last name on your coat, right? It is your job. I don't mean to get nasty about it. Just I noticed that's just kind of where we're going more now than ever before. Is it's a more social media driven fire service, which is cool, but it's less human than it once was. Does that make sense? What I just said?
It does. It does to me, at least. So, and we're having a conversation. So if nobody else is listening, it's okay too.
Right? Who cares?
But, I think about those stories, and with my kid being in the fire service now, one of the biggest things is Chief's kid. Doesn't matter where he goes. Oh, you're Chief Klein's son. He's like, no, that's my dad. He has to keep up with me, And but the whole thing of it is he's got a name, and like he said, I don't want to ride your coattails. And I told him very quickly. I said, you're not going to ride my coattails, because I'll kick you off of them. First of all, I said, you got to make your own name. You've got to earn your legacy of who you are, what you do. So I don't know if you've seen this on social media, talking about social media. It's one of the guys. It's kind of a state thing here in South Carolina. It's called Fat Babies Junkyard Dogs. If you haven't seen it, look it up. But what it is, he takes folks, and there are people that will nominate firefighters that have done something good or something great. So the other day, he makes Fat Babies Junkyard Dogs.
Awesome. So,
and in reality, that's kind of an honor in a sense that you make it up there, you get recognized, and he shares a little bit about what they wrote, and one of the things that they talked about was the passion that he had, and the fact that he loves the job, and he does the things, and he holds people accountable too. I mean, he'll hold his officer to the feet to the fire jack. He'll go in and he'll sit him down and say, "We're going to have a conversation. This is what you need to do."
Right.
And I love that about him. I mean, that's a good part, is that he has that passion, and he goes, and of course he works for another department, but the whole idea is that he's into the job. He likes to go to calls. He likes to
he loves it.
He likes to calls.
It matters to him.
Yeah, the job matters, and to the fact that he actually works at two departments. He works part-time on these days off at another department, and I mean, it's the passion that comes out. And one of the other things that sticks out to me that Chief Brunacini did, this was a setup. That the whole thing with Chief Brunacini and how I got to meet him was a setup by Dan Jones. We're at FDIC. We're at the instructors get together. We're in coats and ties. Now, can you imagine all of us at the FDIC getting in a coat and a tie to get together for a reception? That probably wouldn't happen. But needless to say, we were all there at that point in time. In walks this guy in the Hawaiian shirt. That's the reason I wore it tonight, kind of honoring him.
I love it.
And everybody flocked to him. And I thought, man, this guy, they lost his luggage or he didn't get the memo. But I moved a little closer. I was drinking them beer. They had free beer. That was a good thing.
You can never go
so
wrong
I moved
there.
a little closer, and I figured out that he was somebody, just didn't know who he was. So when it kind of broke up, I did the little retreat thing, and I was standing on the wall like Poindexter. And then all of a sudden I hear volume, velocity, density, and color. And it was like, holy cow, that's Dave Dotson. That's when his first article came out. And I was like, holy cow, I'm going to his class. That's one of the classes they're letting me go. I was a grunt at FDIC. You think those people checking folks in was something? I had to set up classrooms. I had to sweep classrooms. I loaded slide carousels. I mean, I did all that stuff. So I'm there, and here comes Bruno by, and I'm like, he can just keep going. And of course, a little birdie on my shoulder is telling me what I needed to hear. Don't say anything stupid. And he walked up, and of course, I should have known this was a setup. I wasn't smart enough to figure this out, but he said, "Hey, kid, do you enjoy an FDIC?" I said, "Yes, sir." Canned answer here. "Yes, sir. It's an honor and a privilege to be an FDIC advocate." He said, "Good, good." And they were playing music, classical music. And first thing he asked was, "Well, by chance, do you know what type of music this was?" The only time my music class from college ever paid off. I hated that class. Give me a 70, get me out of there. The instructor was passionate about music. I was more passionate about what was for dinner and how much beer I could drink that night. But I said, "Yeah, it's classical, Chief." He said, "Good, good." Little birdie constantly, "Shut up, shut up." Then he goes, "Well, by chance, do you know the composer?" And before the birdie could say anything, I mocked the instructor like I did 100 times. "It's Tchaikovsky, Dance of the Toy Flutes from the Nutcrackers." Can you hear the oboes playing? Little birdie's going, "You're an idiot. You're an idiot." Of course, Brunacini was like, "Hey, I like a guy with a good cultural background. You'll be on main stage with me tomorrow." My first main stage appearance, FDIC, 1994 in Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, needless to say, I was like, I got to ask my chief. He goes,
"What's your take on it?" That sounded great.
It basically said, "I'll talk to Dan for you." And I should have known then it was a setup. But, here's one of the biggest things that sticks out and resonates with me about Dan Jones and Alan Brunacini in this whole story. And it was strong leadership, is they were developing the talents and potentials of those around them.
Right.
And they knew I probably would not, especially Dan knew I probably wasn't going to step in the middle of an opportunity. So he just opened the door, took his foot, and slung me right through the middle of it with a good hard push. And from that point forward, that's when Chief Brunacini and I became friends. I went out on main stage. I had a great time. A few minutes later, Dan comes back through. Of course, it was free beer, so I had 2 beers in my hand. I was amphibious, just like the guy from NC State on national television talking about hook shot. It's good to shoot with both hands and be amphibious. Right. In engineering school, the word's ambidextrous, but they didn't know. Needless to say, I mean, those are the things that have impact. That those little things in fire stations, those little things on scenes, those opportunities when you get a chance at a conference to talk to somebody or mentor to them is the critical factors. And again, it doesn't matter what rank you got. Leadership has nothing to do with rank. And I say that multiple times in my classes. Leadership has everything to do with characteristics and traits. And, again, part of what I stick out in my mind is this, paying it forward. My job now is not to gain anything else. My job is to pay it forward. The problem is, every time you pay one thing forward, you get about 4 in return. I don't know how this works to fix that problem. it happens. And again, but that's what made the fire service. That's what makes us dynamic, that corporate world wishes, only wishes they could grab. I mean, that's something that's there. And I think it still exists. And I see it existing. I think what needs to happen is that we need to launch a campaign. Some of us guys that are into this, we need to launch a campaign and make it where it's cool, make it where it's sexy again. Because and I don't think people take enough time. I think they worry too much about what people think rather than what these people are actually it's going to mean to them and what they're going to think. Because Brunacini talked about the ripple effect and how many people you impact on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And you really don't know. You have no clue. And I think about this quite frequently. And it was over the years, I never really thought that deep into it until it happened to me one time. And I was the fire chief in the city of Eden. I stopped behind this lady that was in a turn lane. We're like at a major intersection. There's like 6 lanes and, one way, 6 lanes the other way, whole 9 yards. And she's sitting there with her flashers on. So I pull up behind her in my buggy and get out, and I walk up and I see her head just drop. And I'm like, this ain't going to be good. So I walk up and says, you look like you're having a little bit of a problem. She goes, I'm out of gas. Are are you sure? She is, yeah. I said, well, you've tried to crank it all? She is, I'm out of gas. I was like, well, this is easy. There's a gas station right here on my right. Do you happen to have a gas can? No, I don't either. Hold on, I'll be right back. So I turn the lights on and get out, go across the gas station. They sold more beer and cigarettes than they did probably anything else. They didn't even have like a half a gallon of milk that I could pour out, rinse out, and put gas in the
Right, right.
It's supposed to. That's not OSHA approved, by the way.
Good catch.
So I'm like frustrated. And she's sitting there in the intersection. I can't push her any which way. I mean, it'd be like dangerous as I'll get out. Then I got to thinking, hey, I'm the fire chief. I have fire stations. They have gas cans.
Right.
I can get them to bring a gas can. So I call on the radio. I'm new. I've not been there but a couple of months. And I call on this long pause, FD1 Station 4. Long pause. Like, what's that sorry thing want? I can hear it now. And they finally answered. And I said, bring me down non-mixed gas. Bring me down one of those cans. And I can hear it now. That chief, he done run out of gas.
Right.
So they show up there, and I take the gas. I'm getting ready to put it in her tank. And one of the guys, I'll never forget this, Randy Sexton, I'll never forget, he goes, Chief, that's city gas. So I stopped a second. I was like, city gas. So I looked at him and said, is there something special about city gas I don't know?
Right.
He said, oh, that's gas that the city purchased. I'm like, I'm still thinking. I'm still trying to turn the wheels a little slow there.
Right.
Okay. So I went ahead and dumped it in there, and they're just like flabbergasted. I'm wasting the city's gas. So when they got done, I handed the can back to him, pulled my wallet out, and handed him $20. I said, go ahead and fill that can up. It was like a 2.5 gallon can.
Right.
Go ahead and fill the can up and then take the rest of it and give buy y'all some ice cream.
Right.
So now it's Doug's gas.
Right. Right.
So I knew good and well that this was going to circulate. I figured they'd call council and all. This was on like late Friday. I always met with the manager at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. So my report, I've got this in the report. So I walk in and I start talking about it. He said, yeah. He said, I've already heard about it. Yeah. I'm like, no, you got to be kidding me. He said, yeah. He said, I've had like 4 council people call me. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm fired. He said, no. He said, citizens were calling and they were going on about how great the fire department was. And he says, and I'm reading your report here. He said, talking about buying gas. He said, why did you buy gas? And I told him the story, and he's like, what a moron.
Yeah.
I said, well, they can't say anything. They got ice cream, and it's Doug's gas.
Right.
So the running joke for about 6 months was, hey, you got any more of that Doug's gas?
That's funny.
But that's an impact. But again, that is a culture that I dealt with as a fire chief. Is like you didn't take care of people. You know, there are some measurables in leaders' lives.
Yeah.
And that ripple effect, just like that day, that ripple effect went far wide. So that was one person. If 4 council people are getting called out of different districts, how many people did she call and talk to? How many people called somebody else and talked about it?
Right.
So think about what happens with that ripple effect when you impact one person like Jerry Green did me. Jerry Green lives on, and Jerry Green is impacting people nonstop every day from what legacy he left with me.
Right.
And that's that paying it forward. And it was a deliberate process that he did. And I think that's something that we need to become more passionate about and share. I know me and you were preaching to the choir here, but I think it's a campaign we need to get on, and we need to get others involved with it.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that's the thing is we get lost, not to go back to the social media thing, but listen, you and I, we're both on social media, we're friends on social media. Just, I think we've developed a culture now where we care more about what others think. And even stuff like that, like not that was like, I don't know if it was really like a social media prevalent day like it is today, but even stuff like that, like, I don't want to incriminate myself here, so I'm going to. This is a hypothetical. This didn't really happen. And I'll say that, right? Full disclaimer. This is a hypothetical. Can you imagine if you had your guys working at a huge wildland fire, and the wildland fire is going on for days on end, and you're rotating crews out, and it's a huge all hands operation, and people from all over the state, from counties all over, are operating at this thing. And this thing makes national news, and you're in charge of these guys, and you're ensuring their safety and their relief and everything like that. And the worry is from your seniority is that what the appearance looks like if this is in social media, that tax dollars are being used for something else, and whether or not they should be being used for that. And then hypothetically, let's just say the person in charge, so mayor, calls you as the fire chief and says, hey, your guys did such a great job out there, and I would like to honor them with some kind of recognition. And I realize as I say this story, this hypothetical story, that we start focusing on ethics more than we do morals. And ethics are important. But like, I'm a baseball fan, so some people are going to miss this when I say this, but like, Roger Maris died before he knew that he had beat Babe Ruth's in-season home run record because of ethics, not because of morals. Because Babe Ruth hit 60 home runs in 154 games, and Roger Maris hit 61 in 162 games. So they put an asterisk next to his record. And Barry Bonds, and I'm not going to get into weeds with it with you, but just Barry Bonds, he did a lot of steroids, and people know it. And I remember when he played for the Pirates, and he looked like what my wife's family would call a flaco. And then he was a monster when he retired. Nonetheless, the dude hit 765 home runs. So he's the home run king. And he's not the only one in the era that he played that was using steroids, and he still outperformed everybody. He's the home run king. So like, we get caught in these things with ethics. And I'm not saying you should be an ethical violator. But when things are right, and we're in the service industry, fire service, all right? We provide a service. You do what's right. And then you find out later on how you can, fix it, or, hey, okay, got it. We'll make an MOU for that later. But when things are right in the moment, that's our job, is to provide a service. And I think that we get very lost more now than ever in the appearance rather than what's right. And I understand because, there's that video of, and those guys did a great job when they're shopping, and the guy's like heckling the hell out of them, telling him that, he's going to call the mayor, and, they're out on his time and his dime, and they're shopping at, the Piggly Wiggly, and they could be over at the other place next door or something, or closer to their station. And I understand that stuff happens and it surfaces, and everybody's got a a camera on their phone now, but we need to get back to why we love the job, inspiring everybody that comes in those doors on why they should love it too. Understand that we're service providers and we have a service to provide. And while towing the ethical line, meaning using common sense, that if you feel like this, we might get in trouble for this, you're probably going to get in trouble, maybe pivot, right? But if in the moment you got to do something that's right, we're service providers. So we need to stop worrying about what everybody thinks and be morally obligated to doing what's right. And I think that the more we inspire those that are coming in, the more that we inspire those to continue to pass on that message, there's going to be success in the fire service. But the more we continue to worry about what everybody else thinks, we're only encouraging the next up and comers in that culture to be socially cognizant of being judged rather than doing what's right when you're supposed to do what's right. And I think that that's where we're failing. And I don't mean to be, again, sound like a crab ass about it. It's just, I see it right now happening. And I'm like, man, like I remember 20 years ago, like, maybe because I grew up right outside New York City, like we would do like the Christmas parade, and people were so happy to see us in uniform walking down Main Street in with the fire trucks behind us. Why do we care so much about whether or not, somebody might be upset because, somebody made a joke or something? Like, I mean, be smart with what you do because you're constantly in the public eye, but do the right thing and create a culture of, excellence, but fun. And I don't mean fun like, like Animal House. I just mean like, man, like we spend so much time doing this. Dudes lose their families, right? We've lost friends just in the past few years, because of being sick or for other reasons, right? And then when we retire, we there's no guarantee how much time we have, and then due to the nature of our job, we're susceptible to cancer, suicide, and heart attack. So it's like, how's the last 20 years of the 30 something years that we put into this going to look? Are we going to be sick and then, wasting away? So it's like, have fun while you're doing it. We can't constantly sit there and be so constantly worried about this person might say this on the internet. Who gives a shit, bro? Have a good time, do a good job, love what you do, and continue to inspire others that this is the greatest job ever. And I don't mean to sound corny when I say it's like, Toys R Us went out of business, and I don't mind. They're not going to sue me now for saying this, but like, I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. Like, I don't want to grow up. I want to be a fireman. I love to be able to have fun. I'm a fire chief, and I love to joke and cut it up with my guys. And I've sat in classes where guys are like, you shouldn't joke with your guys. You're the chief. Yeah, you should, because I worked for chiefs that didn't have a good time because they forgot that they were firemen. I love being a fireman. It was my favorite thing. So even though I'm a chief now and I got to lay down the law sometimes, and that part sucks, most people understand the difference on when I'm being Chief McGlynn and when I'm being Dave, because I like to have fun. I'm not going to be miserable going to work, spending 30-something years away from my family and missing shit just so I could die of cancer 15 years after I retire and not have a good time. You know what I mean? I mean, to take it down a dark avenue, but my point is we need to inspire our people to just understand, like, care about your team, building your culture, having a great time and being awesome at it, and really enjoying those firehouse life. Like that firehouse life, like you talk to guys that retire and you're like, what do you miss the most? They don't talk about going on jobs. They talk about hanging out at the kitchen table. Like, man, hanging out in the back room, hanging out in the lounge, shooting the shit, playing cards, watching TV, sitting at the kitchen table. Just all that, like that's the stuff they miss, because you get to be a boy with your boys. And I know, we have women in the fire, but even they get it, like we're very diverse now. Like that's the best part of the job. So everybody retires. Like that's the thing they miss. Sure, we miss going on jobs, but like you ask anybody that's retired, like, what do you miss the most? Like, hanging out in the kitchen. You know what I mean? So have a good time when you're doing it.
Yeah, some of the women that are in the fire service, they'll bust your chops worse than the guys will.
Oh, yeah, they will. Oh, yeah.
I love it when I got a lot of females in the fire service I'm good friends with. And I love it when, they jump in and bust your chops in a heartbeat, One that I got one day, I said, it was busy. And I said something, I said, I can help if you need a medic. We don't need 30-year-old medicine. But guess what? They were probably right. Sometimes, precordial thumps work, by golly. You're right about this. And one of the things that I see from everybody I talk with and everybody I see is you're right. Everybody talks about the fun stuff. I got together the other night with two guys I worked with back in Chapel Hill, Rodney Watson, David Cheek. Call him Cheeky Poo and Rodney Watson. We were in a fire one time and he kept saying it was out, and I kept saying, no, it's not. I said, I got raw smoke. I can smell it. So raw has been a thing. But, working with them, I was a cook. I was a firehouse cook. Now, David Cheek says I could dirty every dish in the kitchen. I did that on purpose a lot of times just for fun of it, but, because I could. One of the other guys I'm good friends with, I run into him on a fairly regular basis at conferences because he does vending now and he does all that sales stuff. And he said, man, I'm going to tell you, statute of limitations have run out. We used to go back behind you with that cabbage and scrape the pepper off the top of it. You like too much pepper. I'm like, y'all mess with my cabbage? Right. Y'all were messing with my cabbage. That's enough to get you killed. You realize?
That's funny.
Driver I had on a ladder truck, you talk about busting chops at the kitchen table. He called me. It's probably been about a month and a half ago. It was Dennis Bailey. Dennis called me and says, Chief, some of that cube steak and gravy and mashed potatoes and green beans and some of them homemade biscuits sure would be good. I said, Dennis, are you in town? No, but I can meet you halfway.
Nice.
That's the stuff you remember. That's the stuff that folks in the fire service enjoy, hanging out at the kitchen table or picking on some guy,
right.
You like to pick on and him give it back to you. Or I'm going to tell you, that's where you come down to that culture and that leadership, because we all were growing and learning from each other. It didn't matter. I could be the ranking officer in the station, but I can promise you that I was learning from other people, and they were sharing things. And again, it was probably one of the most unique dynamics I had at one point in time with some of the folks, and David Cheek was one of them. And we were sitting eating, we were telling all these stories, and that's a bad thing when we get together, start telling stories. But
awesome though.
Oh, it was. We were sitting at Villa Romana. It was an Italian place we were at, and we were just having the best of times. And one of the things it was said is, let's not wait this long again before we do this. And exactly. And I think that's where it comes back to, when you run into these people or you get a chance to share something with somebody, we got to take advantage of that. And again, I think we need to go on a little bit of a crusade to kind of reignite some passions of leadership in people, especially at the lower levels. The lower level is the key.
Yeah.
And it's those younger folks that are taking younger people under their wings, just like people took us under their wings. And,
right.
And the senior folks, on the floors, grabbing a hold of people and sharing everything they know and being able to kind of help them grow and get to a point and teach them it's all about paying it forward. I think that's one of the keys that we're missing right now is paying it forward, that culture. I think when we walk out of here tonight, and we're getting close on time, but when we walk out of here tonight, one of the biggest things about the leadership we need to be sharing with people is it's about mentoring. We've lost that art of mentoring in the fire service. And we've got to get it back. We've got to bring it back to the prevalence it was when we were coming through.
I agree. I think it's not a lost art, but it's diminishing, and we need to try to rescue it and refine it so that it's applicable to the fire service now. But mentorship and succession planning are extremely important because they're in our firehouse right now and they're coming in tomorrow, and we need to do a good job of explaining to them how everybody is a leader at some form, at some time, and some capacity, and everybody has some kind of mentor. You said the word mentor is somebody will do something in a moment, but it'll last forever. And that's actually the definition of mentorship is it goes for the long haul. We do need to explain to people that those things are important. They're not just buzzwords. They're not just sexy because it sounds cool or looks good on a sticker or a t-shirt. They matter in our thing. They matter more in our thing than they probably do in anything else other than probably the military and the police. They really do. And people need to understand it. And I'm not knocking the cops when I say this, but I think that because we literally live with each other, it's a different love. So we need to explain to guys that it's important to love. And when you're leading people, it's not because you're trying to break somebody's balls. It's because, tying back to what I said before, the whole father's last name thing, because you love them and you want the best from somebody when you love them,
I would agree. I totally would agree with that. Biggest thing tonight I want our listeners to do is take away is seeing the passion that we both have, that both Dave and I have about leadership, about individuals we're around, about the fire service, getting back to that art of mentoring, rejuvenating that, retooling it, rebranding it, and having fun doing the job, and paying it forward, sharing with the people that are around you. Any parting thoughts before we kick out of here?
Nah, just one, thank you. We've been, trying to do this for a while, so it's great. And then for anybody listening, love the job, have fun, and it is your problem. If you see something, it's your problem. You see a new guy, he's your problem, she's your problem, they're your problem. Go and lead to make our thing continue to be better than everything else and what's separate from everything else. Not everybody can do what we do, and that's not a cliche. It's a fact. That's why it sounds cliche, because it is so factual. Not everybody can do what we do, and you need to take some pride in that and explain that to the next people coming in that, hey, not everybody can do what we can do, so you need to really love this.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap up another edition of Fire and Training. I'm your host, Douglas Klein, and thanking Chief Dave McGlynn, my good friend and colleague. Glad that you stopped in and take an opportunity to listen to Fire and Training. Fire and Training is dedicated to the men and women in the streets that are out there 365 days of the year, running the calls, taking care of business, and we're dedicated to making sure they go home by providing the best information that we possibly can. Till next time, stay safe, train hard, and we'll see you on the next edition of Fire and Training.